thanks for joining us for today's episode of the Doobert webinar series. So today we're going to be looking at how we can create a case manually. So this is one of the core concepts within Doobert, and especially the companion case management module, where you can store all of your information on your cases. So we're going to be looking at the process of manually creating these, because there is two ways that we can set up a case, either manually or through a form. So we are going to have another webinar on the form creation process, but for now we are going to go through the most basic way to set them up. So let's check out our agenda. So in our agenda, we are first going to have just a quick overview of what the companion case management module is and what you can do with it. And then we're also going to look at some of our case types and statuses, because we want to make sure that we have these all in order before we go to create our case with them. So we'll go through the process of adding them, deleting them, and things like that. So then they are all ready for us to create our case using them or anything like that. And then we're also going to go through the process of creating case manually, which I'm sure you all came here for. And then we're going to look at some of the additional information aspects of the case. So looking at other details we can add, and kind of just a quick overview of what your possibilities are, because we are going to have a little bit more of an in-depth case components webinar that will show you a lot of the different features in depth. So if you're new to our webinar series, how they work is we do a slideshow. We kind of walk through some of the key components, and then we will go into the system and start demoing everything we talked about today to give you a firsthand look at everything that you can do. And a little bit about me, I'm Lena, your presenter. I've been with Doobert since last fall, so you'll probably see me a lot on these webinars coming up. So I look forward to hearing any of your questions. So we do have a Q&A at the end of our webinar where we'll walk through any FAQs or questions that we've been asked to our help email or on demos. So if you have any questions that we don't answer, feel free to email me at Lena@Doobert.com or help@Doobert.com, and I will be more than happy to give you any additional resources. So I am going to be demoing in our beta environment today, which is kind of like a sandbox, I would say. So things might look a little off. We might run into a couple bugs, but I will be sure to point those out. So let's get started. So creating a case is very easy with Doobert. So with creating cases, we have a few required fields that we will have to put in to create a case. And the reason I say that is because sometimes when you're on the phone and you don't have a lot of time to sit and fill in all of the case information that you want to collect, you can just go through and quickly put in any of the required fields. So we can put in a case name. We typically associate that with either the pet owner or the pet itself, just depending on how you like to organize your companion case management module. And then we're going to choose our case types and statuses. And then we are going to go in and add any of our required contact information. So that is really the required aspects of creating our case. So then once we have all that in, we can create the case. And then once we have a little bit more time, we can always jump back into that case and add our details, our tags, anything like that. So just depending on your process, there is a couple different ways that you can go about case creation. So now we're going to look at just a crash course on some of the case components. So we have our case tags. I love the case tags because I'm a big color coder. I don't know about you guys, but it is a really great feature to use. So this is good for prioritizing any of your really important information that you want to be front and center within that case. And then we also have a case description. So this is really a general section where you can put any details on the case that you want to keep within the case and allow for your team to see really any core information as to, for example, why they're surrendering their pet, why they need spay and neuter, things like that. And then we also have an additional information tab where with this we can add a little bit more in-depth information. So we have the tags about the contact. So this is a good place to put any struggles that the case contact might be going through. For example, why they have to surrender their pet, things like that. Or we can put any organization notes. So for example, if we track our fosters in CCM, we can put when they're out of town, things like that. And then we can also look at any of our previous cases with that contact as well. So that is all I have for our slide deck. So now we're going to jump into the system. All right, so now I'm logged in as an organization. So this is where you will most likely end up right when you log in. So where I'm going to go to first edit our case types and statuses is the companion case management module right here. And we're going to click on the dashboard. And the companion case management module, just a little bit about it, it is really a place for you to store all of your requests and for any of your outreach programs. So as you can see here on our dashboard, we have a couple different programs that we are looking at. So spay and neuter, training behavior, foster volunteer, foster support, all things like that. So this is really just a good place to consolidate all of your data, manage all your information, and keep it all within one place. But then when we get into some of the ways to fully use CCM to its most highest potential, we can start using workflows, forms, and any of the communication features as well. So a lot of different things you can do with it. So this is really just the beginning steps of getting started in CCM. So once we are in our CCM dashboard, we're going to go to Manage Defaults right here. And we're going to see our case statuses and our case types. So this is where we can go to edit, add, delete any of these. So we always want to make sure that these are good to go before we go to create a case that we might need them for. So with these, if I want to add one, I can go ahead and click on this plus, and then I can type in a case status name, and I can also put a color. So for this one, we are going to put an active foster as our case status, and then we will choose green. So we're going to click create. And then for our case types, it is a super similar process to creating these. So we can just go ahead and click right here, and then we can add any of our programs if, for example, they're not here yet, or if we are adding a program. So I can put TNR, for example, and then we can click create. So that is really just the process for creating any types, creating any statuses, and then if there's any that we don't need anymore, we can go ahead and choose this little trash can to delete that. As you'll see, we have a few with the little grayed out trash can. Those we have to keep, unfortunately, but it's not a big deal if you don't use them. So just keep that in mind, and then we have that on these as well. These are just system-generated defaults. Same goes for these. You can see who created them within your organization if you have a team going. So just wanted to point those out because this is a good stepping stone into the creating a case process. So now once we have our case types and our statuses all looking good, we can go into our companion case management tab again, and we're going to click on cases right here. And this is our companion case management cases tab. So as you'll see, we have a lot of search filters at the top, and then we also have some advanced filters as well. And what I really like about these is that if we run a search, we can have our search results stay in one tab, and then any of our new or our opened cases will open in a new tab. So then we can always bounce back to that previous tab to see all of our search results. So I've been really liking that new functionality. So definitely try that out. But to go about creating our case, we are going to click on this plus sign right here to manually add our case. So we're just going to put in a case name. So with these, like I said in my slides, you can either name them the pet owner or you can name it as the pet. It really just depends whether you want your case management module to be one per pet or one owner with multiple pets attached, if that is involving their situation. So for mine, we are just going to put a pet owner name. So for example, we are just going to put Sarah Smith, and we are going to choose our status right here. So as you can see, we went ahead and added one, so it will be here as active foster. So for example, we can create a foster profile. So I'm going to click Active Foster. So this case is going to be an organization's case for managing this foster. So then we can go ahead and choose our case type right here. So with this, I can go and choose a foster or a foster volunteer option. It just depends. So we're going to do foster volunteer. So now we have our required fields filled in. So we have our name, our status, and our type. So now we have our description and a couple text formatting options, which I love. So here is where you can put any of the details about a case. So with this one, we're just going to put a little bit about why Sarah is applying to be a foster. So Sarah has applied to foster with cause for pause. She has been approved by Lena and is ready to accept her first foster pet. So that's kind of just a rough idea of what you can do with the case description. Anything important, anything notable that you want to put there is always great. So now we are going to move into our contact information right here. So here we have a few required fields. So our email and our zip code are required. So if we don't want to collect any of this other information, we don't have to. But for demo purposes, I'm going to fill it all in. So we will put Sarah, and then we can put a case address if we'd like, any phone number, and then we can put in city, email. So I'm going to put in my email right here, and then we'll put in a zip code. But if you have anyone who doesn't want to share their zip code, 5 zeros also works to get past that required field. So that's what I'm going to do for this one. And then also for the email, if they don't have an email or your organization just doesn't have it, none@none.com also works. But with that, it will stop any email communication from being sent to them. So just keep that in mind. If you are looking to send them any communications, you'll want to update that. But for now, we have all of our required fields filled out and any notable information in our description, which we don't have to add now, but it always is good to put a little bit of details in here, and everything looks good. So we're going to go ahead and click save. So now we have our case created. So now what we can do is go in and add any additional information, case components, things like that. So here we have our case tags, which is, like I said, one of my favorites because I love to color code. So with specifically a foster volunteer profile, what we can do with these is just put information on their interests. So for example, she is willing to take spayed dogs. And then we can also add one for neutered dogs. And we can go ahead and choose any color if we don't have an existing tag for it already. So we will add blue. So that is just how our case tags work. So any important information is always good to put there. Or if you have any keywords that you like to search with. So for example, the way I see this being most beneficial is if you're looking to find a foster that is a good fit for an animal, and we're going to search through our cases to see who might be a good fit, and we're going to search the tag of spayed dogs. So now we're going to see everybody who is willing to accept a spayed dog. So that is kind of how they work and the way you can use them to the maximum capacity. So down here we have the animals section. So we can also add an animal profile. Once we do add a foster pet to her profile, we can go ahead and add that animal profile in right here, but we're going to go through that in another webinar, so I will skip that for right now. But we have a couple options. We have the full ad, the quick ad, and we have an ad for my organization, and we also have the upload feature, so definitely check that out. We also have our tasks, files, and activities section right here. So now we can go into our additional information right here. So this is another section where we can add any tags about our contact. So for example, this is good to put a work schedule. For example, as a foster volunteer, an organization wants to know how long a day that they're going to be away from the pet, or whether they are going to crate that pet while it's gone. So that's a good place to store any information about the contact and their preferences again. And then internal notes about contact. This is a good place to put their availability or when they are unavailable to foster. So for example, with a foster volunteer, we can say Sarah has a vacation on April 29th through May 6th. So that's a good idea to track any notes that your foster would like the organization to keep in mind. So we can just go ahead and add that right here. And then we can put any information. If, for example, this is a rehoming case, we can say, would the contact keep their pet if they were provided resources? We can select yes or no. And then would the contact rehome their pet on their own if they had resources? We can put yes or no. So these are really specific to any of your owner surrender rehoming cases. So definitely check those out if that is your plan for using CCM. And then down here we have any of our related cases and previous cases. So with these, our previous cases are going to fall in if that email is appearing twice within the system. So this typically means that this person has reached out previously for assistance from your organization, and you can check out any of the cases on them as well. And this would just pull up our case page if we clicked on it. And then we can also add a related case. So say we have another foster who has similar preferences, we can relate them here as well by clicking add. We can either search a case name or a case ID right here. So that's a really great feature. But other than that, that is really all of the components of the case that go along with creating it. So now we are going to jump into our Q&A. Okay, so for our Q&A, our first question is, how can I edit any of my case tags or change the color of them? So great question. We can do that within our Manage Tags functionality. So that is a place where you can go and see all of the information about any of the tags that are within your system. So that includes the case tags, the tags about the contact, and then also any animal tags as well. So let's check that out. So I am going to click on our shortcuts option right here, and then I'm going to go up to Manage Tags. And right here, we can see all of the case tags that we have. We can search them if we have one in mind that we want to edit, and then see how many we have, change any of the colors, see how many times they were used. We can also select any and also see who they were created by within our organization. And then to edit them, we're just going to click on 3 dots and edit tag or delete it. So that's really great. So definitely check that out if you are interested in making any changes to your case tags. So moving back into our Q&A, it says, where can I go to send a communication within the case? So another great question. So let's check that out. So we're going to go back into our cases tab right here, and we're going to open up this case, for example, and we can go over into our communication tab right here. And this is where we can send any emails or texts. So if we tab over, we can send a text or an email, subject line, and anything you would like to put in the message. And then you can also attach a file. And then your conversation log is going to be down here. So you'll be able to see any replies or also see what your organization has sent. So that is all I have for our Q&A today. So I really want to thank you guys for joining us, and I hope to see you in future webinars.